just like Naito and Okada, they were going and preventing each other from hitting their biggest moves, you know. And
what were their moves, Jack?
So Mayu's biggest moves are that she has a dragon suplex and a moonsault.
Okay.
And Utami's is she gets him in a torture rack and then does a power bomb. And she also does sort of like a razor's edge.
Oh my!
Those were their two moves, so they were going out of their way to prevent it. I love that Mayu, like she was selling so much of the offense and selling her desperation a lot through her facial expressions. Which, you know, I'll real quickly go over this. This was like my favorite sequence to sell the desperation. Mayu escapes, I believe, Utami. She hits her with a super kick, then hits her with that dragon suplex. Utami kicks out, and Mayu realizes that she has to go to the moonsault, and it's still not enough. And then Utami catches her off guard and gets her in a sleeper. And you just see Mayu slowly fading, but slowly having that desperation in her eyes to not lose this title. And so she barely gets the leg on the bottom rope. And then you have Utami hit a suplex, then the torture rack bomb, but Mayu still kicks out. And then it looks like Mayu's going to escape with the win because she rolls her up. And this is where my favorite sequence comes in, is she escapes. She hits Mayu with the clothesline, who when she goes and falls, she lands right on her head. And so Utami takes advantage, does another torture rack powerbomb, and then immediately follows it with a razor's end to get the win, end the 377-day reign. And it just completely established a new star, and I just loved how like the high stakes and just the final sequence of it was just really good for me. It was generally one of my favorite women's matches. Definitely the best women's match I've seen all year.
What an incredible sequence that you described, Jack. You really painted a portrait of what happened between the two ladies.
Oh, man. I really love that match, yes. That was my number 3.
Wow. Alrighty, here we go. We ready?
Yeah.
Are we ready for our top 2 matches?
Wait,
or no, I have to hit you with my number 3.
Yeah, you're number 3.
I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm really excited, though, to hear about how similar or different our top 2 matches are. But my number 3 is the winner-take-all match at the Great American Bash between NXT Heavyweight Champion Adam Cole and the North American Champion Keith Lee. It was exciting to see the two men go at it without Undisputed Era's interference.
True.
They gave it a ton of time for a match that was on the USA Network. You know, hard-hitting affair. Keith Lee was not to be denied.
Oh,
Giant Man, spirit bombing, you know, left and right. Adam Cole himself coming off of a massive multi-hundred-day reign as NXT champion. The longest reigning NXT champion of history. Also being unseated by a new star in Keith Lee.
Yeah. That's definitely, again, up there in my top 10 moments, seeing Lee become double champion. And again, they treat it like such a big thing by giving him that huge confetti and stuff and celebrating. And then continue to build by then showing Karrion Kross and Scarlett watching on.
That's right. That's right. Setting up the challenger right away.
Yeah. But, yeah. Didn't quite make my list, but definitely a good match from this year.
Agreed.
All right. So the top 2. My number 2 match was Walter versus Dragunov on NXT UK.
I started to watch this match for you and your dad, Jack. I just didn't finish it.
Oof. Well, all I'm going to say, we got about 10 minutes left, so we'll kind of speed it up a bit.
Okay.
All I'll say is, if you remember what I said about Balor versus O'Reilly, take that and multiply it by 1,000,000, because oh my gosh, this was an insanely brutal match.
Yes, it certainly was brutal for the 10 minutes that I watched it, you know?
Yeah.
That was hard hitting, and then Walter's working over Ila's neck.
Yeah.
Vicious.
Yeah. I never thought I'd see a match this brutal that didn't involve weapons or some like deathmatch stipulation. But
how funny! It's absolutely true.
But like Walter was just going insane. That doesn't mean that Dragunov didn't have any offense as well. He got in so many brutal, stiff hits as well, and and Dragunov may not be as small as Tyler Bate, but he pulled off a David versus Goliath type match against Walter like Tyler Bate did last year.
Right.
And my gosh, man, Walter was just overpowering. And this was the one benefit of having an empty arena was you heard every hit, every chop from both men.
You certainly did.
Man, by the end of the match, like I genuinely just thought like Dragunov was seriously hurt because he looked dead. His whole body was red. He was bleeding from his mouth. I was like, man, this doesn't even look like it was a planned wrestling fight. This just seemed like both men went out and had like a actual fight, and Walter just got the best of him by choking him out at the end.
I'm going to finish watching it, Jack. You make it sound too tantalizing a watch to ignore.
Alright, so you're number 2.
Here we go. I'm not going to do it near the justice that you've done your previous matches, but it's the Junior Heavyweight Championship match at Wrestle Kingdom 14 between Hiromu Takahashi and Will Ospreay.
I've heard a lot about that match.
There's too much to say. But Hiromu was coming off of a neck injury himself. We thought he was done forever. We were elated to see him back in the ring, and we thought, is he going to work Safer style? Is he going to slow it down? The answer was no. And no traverses all language barriers, and they put on a clinic. It had the story, it had the drama, it had the stakes. And it had an incredible sequence that's quite a gifable moment that I can't even begin to do justice. But it's those two at Wrestle Kingdom. Takahashi wins. Reclaims the heavyweight champion, the junior heavyweight championship.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out that match. I saw a lot of good things about it. But finally,
the number 1 match. I wonder if it's the same.
I don't think it's gonna be the same, just because I know for a fact that I don't think I've seen anyone else have this match on as their number 1. But I have good reason for it.
But Jack, what you got?
My number 1 is Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic at TakeOver Portland.
Wow, that is not my match.
So, there are not enough words in the English dictionary for me to describe this match and to give it as much praise as I have loved this match. Like, genuinely, there is not a single match this year that I have rewatched more than this match. The going into it, you had Mark Henry doing that little video package, hyping it up, talking about how these are 2 big guys, but they're 2 big guys like you've never seen before, and they showcase like all the crazy things they've done. The commentary team was so on point, and the one thing that puts it over for me that it's kind of unfair, but a lot of other matches lacked was the crowd not being there. Whereas this match having that crowd was just so good. There's the spot.
Was it for the North American title?
Yes, it was for the North American title. So there's the spot where Keith Lee has Dijakovic on the outside against the barricade. He literally shushes the crowd and everyone goes quiet just so they can hear how hard he chops Dijakovic. Then you have the spot where Dijakovic from the inside of the ring dives out to Keith Lee on the outside, sitting in a chair. You have them doing a Spanish fly, a 6'2", 320-pound man, and a 6'7", like probably 300 or maybe somewhere around there, man, doing a Spanish fly off the top rope. And genuinely, my favorite spot of the night was just the adrenaline sequence where Keith Lee hits the spirit bomb, but Dijakovic pops back up. But then he gets caught, and then Keith Lee gets him again for another spirit bomb for the close 2 count.
I remember that spot where he pops up from the spirit bomb. You know what I mean? Like on his feet.
Yeah.
Almost knocked out on his feet.
Yeah, I just loved it. It had a rapid fire pace, and I just loved everything about it. And I don't know what it is about it, but I can just, anytime I'm like, man, what's a good match I can go and watch? Sure, I can go watch any of these matches, but this match, for some reason, like, I've just revisited it the most. It gave me the most joy, both watching it for the first time, as it was happening, and then rewatching it over and over. It was just that good for me.
They had fought a few times before, but just the rapid pace, all of the big moves. You think, what if Takahashi and Ospreay were each 3 times bigger than they actually are?
Yeah.
And that's the match you're describing, sir.
Yeah. I love this match. But so, finally, what is your number 1?
How many minutes we got?
4 minutes and 45 seconds.
I only need 2. It's Sasha Banks and Bayley in Hell in the Cell for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I felt it when I watched it, and I've thought about it since October, and no match comes anywhere near the build or the payoff and the skill demonstrated throughout the match. We saw wrestling and, your high-stakes weaponry action. We saw some innovative spots, and we just saw raw brutality between these 2 women who have gone back and forth on their relationship. It had reached the boiling point, and I wanted desperately for them to not wait until WrestleMania, because it would cool off.
Yeah.
They ended off at the right time. The right person won. We saw Sasha claim the SmackDown title, something she's wanted forever. Like Naito. It had this multi-year build. Oh, it was good. And I put it up against everything on my list, and I went, nope. Sasha and Bayley had me at the edge of my seat, really excited for the outcome. And it too ended Bayley's super long reign as the SmackDown Women's Champion. She went in thinking, nope, I'm untouchable. It was great.
Yeah. That's definitely... I definitely had that in consideration. I had so many good matches in consideration, but yeah. It was really difficult because despite there being no crowds to hype up a lot of matches, despite, it being kind of a rough year in terms of a lot of wrestling companies kind of cooled off a bit and they weren't as strong as they were before.
Right.
They still went out, man, and I again, like we said in the last episode, I'm just so thankful for wrestling and for these wrestlers just going out and continuing to do it in what a year it's been.
Agreed. And I appreciate the year of podcasting, sir. Like I've told you and your dad before, I've had a lot of fun talking to you guys about the wrestling.
Yeah, that genuinely, when WrestleMania was coming up, and the school was shut down, and I was thinking of
that was at the beginning of the shutdown.
Yeah, and I was like, man, the podcast has been on hiatus for a while. What are we gonna do? And that's when it came to me, let me see if I can get Mr. Solis through internet. Let me get Ricardo, and
that's right.
And then later my dad would join too, Let's talk about wrestling because, we can talk about anything on the podcast for the most part. And
absolutely.
And and then being able to continue it now from the school's podcast before to now here on our own personal podcast, I just love it. It like we've said multiple times in previous episodes, it gives us a bit more reason to watch when there might not be enough motivation to.
Agreed.
Yeah. But so that wraps up our top 10 list of our favorite wrestling matches of 2020. We hope you all enjoyed. Genuinely a really great year for wrestling despite a lot of the circumstances.
Agreed. Can I plug my other podcast there?
Sure.
Check us out, the_pod_with_no_name. On Instagram. Joe is a buddy of mine from high school, and we talk about movies. Our last episode to come out soon is Die Hard a Christmas Movie? Listen if you want to hear a man lose his mind as he's being beaten by his own petard.
So we thank you all again for joining us for another episode of the Rule 34 podcast. Remember, the door is always open. I've been your host, Jack.
I've been Mr. Solis.
We thank you all for joining, and remember, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you all, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Happy holiday.